morning. We are here in the garage and we are going to winterize the Bass Tracker Protein 175 with a 60 horse on it. So that's that motor in the background right there. So I'm gonna go over everything I do first and then actually do it, so you guys don't have to watch the whole video, because some of the things you know how to do, some of the things you don't. So I'm not a full-time YouTuber, so I can't afford to store my boat in heated storage, so I winterize literally everything in the boat, bring everything in that's going to freeze and can be broken by snow and everything else. So let me show you guys that first. I'll do a quick walkthrough and then I'll go step by step on how to do everything else. So first things first, I'm going to use the manual that actually came with the motor and the boat basically. It says to do anything that basically has water in it, get it out of there. So if it can freeze, get it out. So that's what I'm going to start with first. I'm going to start from the bottom up, work my way up through the trailer and go all the way up to the top. So I'm going to be storing it outside. I'm going to make a little A-frame that sits on top with a tarp. You guys seen pictures of this before or done it before. It's really easy to do. I'm going to go buy the stuff now because I destroyed it last year because there's still ice on it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pump all the, take these covers off, and I'm going to pump some fresh grease in there until the color basically changes, and all that, any water or any moisture will come out of there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to remove all these seats. So I'm going to remove all those screws right there, actually these screws, this seat, and that seat. I'm going to remove all of that stuff, and the reason for that is because if there's any moisture in those seats, they're going to crack over the winter. It's just guaranteed. I'm going to remove this windshield as well, so I'm going to remove all those screws because that can break easy. I've already removed all of my electronics. I'm going to remove this thing. I'm going to put these things down. Trolling motor is going to stay on there. When I store the trailer, it's going to go on jack stands. Hopefully, it's going to go on jack stands this year because the tires end up making ruts in my lawn and all that fun stuff. Make sure your live well is empty. I'm also going to remove all the batteries, but I'm not done winterizing yet, so I'll do that after. I'm going to take out my battery charger, which I feel like is going to be a pain in the butt, but it's going to be easier than paying another something $100, $300 in the spring to replace the thing. I don't know if it's good for freeze or not. It says it is, but probably not for a long-term freeze. So the other thing I'm going to do is I use non-ethanol gas, so I pay extra, my premium in my gas tank. I'm going to treat it anyways, it doesn't hurt. So I'm going to treat that with the correct stuff. I'll show you guys what that is over here. So I use this stuff right here. This is extended protection gasoline treatment, which should take care of everything. There's little instructions on the back, there's little instructions in the manual itself. I also use fogging oil, storage seal, and it's made by Quicksilver, which is mercury anyway, so I use their stuff because then they can't say, oh, you use something else. And it's just as easy. Or you could have the dealer do it for like a gazillion dollars. I don't know how much that actually costs, but I've never done it myself. Always do it myself. So, remove all that. I'm going to remove these trays here too. Remove all my batteries. I am going to re-grease anything in the manual that says to re-grease back here, so all of the linkage and all of the train that steers the wheel and everything. I'm going to store the motor in the upright position, which is the vertical position, not the upright position, the vertical up and down. Lets the water drain out. I'm also going to start and take the spark plugs out and fog the motor with that fogging oil, so I'll show you guys how to do that. So the next thing I'm going to do, sorry about the lighting, it's dark in here, is basically pump new grease into this on both sides. I've had it where I add water in there over the winter, it froze, ruined a bunch of bearings. It's not worth it. Just get new grease. I use some AMS oil, synthetic stuff for trailers. Seems to work great, seems to get a little bit hot. Maybe I need to back my nut off a little bit more. Show you guys how to use that. And I'll do it on both sides. I'll just show you guys one. Pry the cover off. Wear gloves because stuff gets everywhere. So I'm going to keep doing this until all the stuff comes out. If you guys can see that. So I'm going to keep doing that until all of the old grease comes out. It's really cold right now, so it's going to take a while. So I'll just fast forward to it. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to warm up the motor with water and muffs. It's currently snowing right now, so it's not the best time to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. So I'm warming up the motor. I'm going to drain the oil out of the bottom end and drain the oil out of basically the top end, or the 4-stroke motor oil. This is a 4-stroke compared to the 2-stroke models. I don't have the red oil with me right now, so I'm going to go get that and then come back and change the oil. This preventative maintenance video, I'll put a link in the description on how to do all of that, so you guys want to actually see me do that. I'll change the bottom oil right now because I do that every year. That's one thing that can't have water in it because that will break. So I'm going to start the motor up. Do that right now. Put you guys back up here. Sometimes it takes a little while to get the water going, especially when it's cold. It's got to pump all that water back up in the system. So I'm going to let that warm up for a little while. Then I'm going to drain the bottom oil, and I'll show you guys how to do that. It's really easy. So the next thing is to drain the bottom end oil, which is super easy. There's a screw down here. If you guys can see that. There's a screw down here. Loosen that with a big screwdriver. Don't use a little small one. You'll strip that screw out pretty easy. Loosen the vent first, and then that one. Make sure you warm this oil up so it's like peanut butter when it's this cold, so it takes forever. If you got the time, do it that way, the long way, I guess. So that's going to drain for a while. While that's doing that, I'm going to take the spark plugs out and start messing with that. So we're going to refill the bottom end back up. The next step is actually to add this into the filter section. I'll show you guys how to do that next. I'm using this stuff from Mercury. It's from Mercury. Must work, right? One of my other videos that shows you how to do the whole thing. I'll just shorten version, pump it in the bottom till it comes to the top, plug both holes, pump a little extra in, and then plug the top hole and then the bottom hole, and then you're done. Simple as it. You have a lot of murky and water comes out. You have a bad bottom end. There's some seal somewhere that's bad. The screws are bad. Something's bad. Google it. It'll show you how to fix it. Usually it's just a seal, or you need a whole new gasket around the bottom end. That gets a little more time consuming and a little more expensive, but this is the easiest thing maintenance wise to change. People don't do it because it's like in the water and out of mind. It's cheap and easy, just do it. This is cheap. I don't know how much it costs, but it's cheap. 16 bucks, like she says right on it. So it started coming out the top. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to put a little bit more extra in there. Make sure there's no air bubbles coming out. Air bubbles are bad. Put the vent screw back in. And the tricky part is when you're putting the other screw back in, when you take this little pump thing out, when you take the pump thing out, more oil is going to come out, so just put like a couple extra pumps in there. You won't really hurt it if you just do a little bit. So the next step is to basically start the system and run some fuel stabilizer through the system. The quickest way to do that is through the fuel filter, or basically the water separator, which is right there. So what I'll do is take that off. The system says to add 3 cc's of fuel stabilizer. This is in ounces, so I already did the conversion. It's like 0.101 ounces, so just a little dab of this. I'm going to put nothing in there to make it worthwhile. I'm going to pour out that old gas first. Just unscrew that. Mine was finger tight. There's a little nut in the bottom. You can do it nut tight if you want. Most people don't know there's a fuel filter right there. There's one on the other side as well. Replace both of those in the spring, especially if you use ethanol, which I do not. Pour out the old gas. Pour in the stabilizer. When I start the motor, the gas will mix with that, clean all the system out basically. It says run for 15 minutes. I'm not letting it run for 15 minutes. That's way too long. So I'm going to do that right now. Restart the motor, put it on the muffs, run it for like 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm also going to add this to my gas tank. It's a 20-gallon gas tank. I think I have 15 gallons in there or so. I just filled it up recently. So follow the instructions on whatever fuel stabilizer you use. This is 1 ounce for every 10 gallons. So I'm going to use the prescribed amount. Do the math in yourself. I don't like adding all of it because I have non-ethanol fuel. I don't think it needs as much. Pour that right in your tank. That part's done. Next part is basically taking the spark plugs out, rotating the flywheel and fogging the motor, and then changing the oil. So in the manual it says to do all that stuff in that order. That's what I'm going to do. So taking the spark plugs out is a long task, but I'm going to use the right wrench, take all the spark plugs out, and then I'll turn the camera back on. Or I'll just record the whole thing. So now all the plugs are out. I'm going to take these screws off on the top of the flywheel. I'll show you that guy real quick. There's a couple ones here, and then on the other side. That's to manually rotate the flywheel after I spray the stuff in there. So I'll do that real quick. So like I said before, I'm going to use this stuff. It says squirt in each cylinder for 5 seconds. I'm going to do that real quick and then rotate the flywheel. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. One. I don't know when the camera died, but it died. So I sprayed it in there and I rotated the flywheel using this. And if you're staring at it, you're going to rotate the motor clockwise if you're just staring at it. So let's take that. Rotate that a few times. I already did it. That gets all the stuff everywhere. Put the spark plugs back in. Put the wires back on correctly. Otherwise, you will not remember where they go in the spring. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the next step. So the next thing it says to do is drain or change the oil, basically, which makes sense. There's any water in it, any old particles that you don't want in there. Change that before the winter. don't have to deal with it in spring. Just start your boat up and kind of go. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna change, show you guys that right there. Take that out, change my oil, put new oil in. I'll put a link in another link to one of my other videos that shows you how to do all of this. Most people know how to do it anyways. If you don't, have your dealer do it. Just to recap, anything that has any sort of grease in it, replace it. Any sort of thing that could have water in it, make sure you drain it out. So there's the pump jack in the front. I'm gonna re-grease that. I'm gonna re-grease all of the fittings in here. I'll show you that real quick. All the ones in here, all the ones in here. There's like 3 or 4 of them. Pump a bunch of grease in there. The grease is cheap. Remember, you can't overdo it. Just keep pumping it until all the water or any air bubbles come out, until it changes color basically. I fogged the motor, put the spark plug backs in, change the bottom end oil, change the top end oil. I usually deflate the tires a little bit, so it'll put a little less pressure on the ground and on the tires, so they're not under so much weight and basically pressure all winter long. Taking the batteries out except for the starter motor battery, so I can lift up the motor and drive down the driveway with it, turn around, back it in, and then I'm gonna lower it back down and take that battery out. And then I'm gonna put dryer sheets all in the boat and put a little teepee and a tarp over it, and it'll sleep until probably May or April this year, or in 2018. And then you guys will see boat videos instead of ice fishing videos, which I know you guys like both. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I know I kind of skipped over a bunch.